People deluded, I'm back again now. Champions League games have been played for everybody so far. If you're in the champs, yeah, Arsenal won in it. Run your jokes, but there's on a regular basis you have this debate. I mean, sooner or later you'll see it when the first English team go out. Is do we need a winter break, which is gonna, pardon me, do we need a winter break, which is gonna come? And the more important question, is it because of the competitiveness of the Premier League as to why they're there? Why we can't succeed in the Champions League and things like that? Obviously, for the European sides, the likes of maybe not so much the Spanish clubs, or you could say Barcelona, Madrid, Atletico to a degree too, is normally one of them three that's going to win the league. I don't necessarily agree with the statement that any of these leagues are just a walkthrough, but you got that. I mean, PSG is the exception. There's some talent in Liga, but PSG are more likely to win the league by a landslide. I mean, what was the year they won it at Christmas? Juventus, yeah, Napoli ran them close, but ultimately Juventus won. You always hear the comment, is the competitiveness of the Premier League harming the Champions League prospects for English clubs? Whenever, even Bayern Munich, the minute Bayern Munich go out, you're going to hear, because it always happens with them. Not that I'm particularly fond of Bayern Munich, especially after the chairman's comments and stuff in regards to Ozil. But, is the lack of top-level competition week in, week out harming Bayern Munich? You could say yeah, you could say no. Personally, I believe it's nothing to do with the competition they face and things like that. I actually think it's because typically the European sides, they appear more cerebral in their approach, and they're a bit more fluid and flexible with their game plans and stuff like that. Like Juventus, obviously Juventus 9 times out of 10 they're going to play a similar way, but they're more cerebral with how they might play a European opposition. They might drop, for instance, Dybala to play someone for, this is just a hypothetical thing, but they might drop Dybala to play another midfielder to specifically man-mark someone. They're very cerebral with the time wasting and things like that. That's what you see with the European sides. Barca and Madrid, great with that. And yeah, man, I don't think there's any easy answer. I just think it's because the European nations and clubs are a bit more cerebral because... yeah, by that logic, Madrid should have won the league and the Champions League last year. They didn't. I think there's only 1 point separating everybody in in the Spanish league, so it's not entirely true. Yeah, Juventus, you could say Juventus and Munich, it's very valid that they have no real competition. But by that logic, if English clubs are very competitive and stuff, and they're playing against such a high level of competitiveness, surely all of these sides that are in the Champions League, because they're playing each other and bullying each other, surely they should be winning the league then. The Champions League, surely they should be winning it. Or getting into the finals. Yes, Liverpool got into the final last year, but past that, when last did the English side make it? I can't tell you off the top of my head. It's probably, off the top of my head, 2011? Maybe? 20, what was it? 2011, maybe 2012? When was it Chelsea won it? I think that was the last time versus Munich, or 2011 versus... Man United versus Barca when Messi done his thing. But other than that, you can't. I don't think the league being competitive harms them to a degree. Yeah, you could say it does have. It is a valid argument. It does have some sense to it. I mean, if you can't really rest players, if there's fatigue, and you think about the international break, it's all valid. But I don't know or have all the answers. But I just personally think it's a cop out. Like, you look at Inter Milan versus Spurs, you look at PSV to a degree versus Spurs, you look at Barcelona versus Spurs. European sides are way more try to be a bit more calculated and have a better game plan, I believe, than any English side in Europa League or in the Premier League. Look at in the Premier League versus the European leagues. Look at us last year against Atletico. We didn't take our chances. They came and took it. They were cerebral in their approach. Like, do you get it? City out of all the English clubs, you're probably looking at City, United. Until it's mathematically impossible, same as Spurs, you can still qualify. Spurs, it does look like more of you're wishing a lot to qualify, not a win from the first three. You're wishing a lot. You think you're joining the Europa League, but you can't really. I don't really know how you make sense of it, because if you look at Spurs, considering they didn't buy anybody, they're still in amongst the top four in the league, and then, by that logic, they kind of should be competing in the champs. Because surely if the league is so competitive, how can that harm a team? Yeah, you can say fatigue and things, and I've just said it, but surely if you're playing in a more competitive league or against more competitive opponents, when you go and play the European counterparts, obviously Juventus and these sides are better than most English sides, but surely you should be battering them because your level of performance, your output, your running, your aggression, all of these things should be higher. So I don't really think it's necessarily true. I don't think it makes any sense to a degree. If it was to stand true for anyone, you'd probably say PSV and Bayern Munich, if anything. And maybe for me, it's because Bayern Munich and PSG specifically, if PSG are not cerebral enough in their approach in the latter stages of the Champions League. They look like they need a real quality midfielder, defensive mid, or someone that can break down play, in my opinion. And Bayern Munich have just shot themselves in the foot in the latter stages half the time. So I don't feel being in a competitive league gives you an advantage or a disadvantage. I don't feel playing in a European league where some might complain that the likes of Juventus or whatever are at risk of stagnating because of competition. I think it's a cop-out, because if you look at it on the other hand, yeah, Juventus are better than every other side, but you're forgetting pressure. They're expected to win week in, week out. It doesn't matter how good you are. Pressure will tell. Pressure is applied in every training session, every conference, every match. So to constantly keep, obviously they're not winning every game, but to keep delivering is how you got to look at it all ways. I don't feel there's any way of necessarily answering this. I just feel when you look at the European sides, like I've looked at us, AC Milan let me down when we played them last year, but Atletico, Inter, Barca, Juventus, against Manchester United even, they're way more cerebral in their approach, even by the way the manager's setting up. Even when you see against, obviously Italians are very good at game management and defending. Even look at the players yesterday, strategic time wasting, which I applaud. I don't condone it, but I can see why you do it. Breaking down play, or not taking risks, all these sort of things. I don't feel English managers, and definitely the players, are not as cerebral. I don't feel they're as responsible. I feel football in general, people have to be babied and how you have to hold players' hands, but English clubs and English players, that's out of everybody, that's said the most, in my opinion. That's there the most. But I got nothing more to add, man. People deluded. Thank you for listening. Get in the comments, subscribe, and do the rest if you wish. I'm out.